Hey everyone, welcome to Zealots. I'm Forrest.
And I'm Matt.
So today I think we're going to break down Andor. This is a pretty good episode. I think Matt liked it a lot. This is basically the heist episode.
Yep, it is. It's the kind of Guy Ritchie episode. Love it. Everything about it was awesome. So.
Yeah, it seemed this was definitely after 2 episodes of build up, they definitely followed through on the promise of the heist actually happening. Like I think during the 4th episode, I thought, is the heist gonna happen in this episode? And it didn't happen. The 5th episode was like, is the heist gonna happen in this episode? It was like, no. So it was actually the 6th episode, the heist actually happens. And I don't know. I was under the impression that they would pull off the heist without any witnesses, but it seemed they really needed to have witnesses for this heist to go through. I guess the idea was that they needed the head Imperial dude to get into the vault. So and they didn't seem to mind that they had to take his children. I mean, his son and his wife hostage. So.
And I will say, kind of the frustration with the last 2 episodes is the build up to this heist, but yeah. I really think they played off really well here. And the end of the episode is kind of the whole point of why they wanted to have witnesses, because they're trying to get the rebellion started. And okay. I just think it's really well written. And like I said, the last part of the episode, you have some guy sitting there going well, do you have Aldani stuff? Because I heard about this thing. And I really love it because I feel this one show has done more world building in Star Wars than a lot of the movies and except for maybe Mandalorian, a lot of these other shows. So it's just been awesome to watch.
Well, I think most people would agree that this show is definitely superior to Kenobi and Boba Fett by far.
Oh yeah,
I will definitely agree with that.
Boba Fett is really just Mandalorian Part 2.
Basically, yeah, and the best episodes of that show were the Mandalorian episodes.
Exactly.
Sadly, so I mean, even the star of the of Boba Fett, Tamara Morrison, has said I would have done some things differently for the Boba Fett show. So when the star isn't happy with the final product, then you can tell that there was it wasn't great. So. But yeah, I really enjoyed the Bryan Cranston Sherpa. Mm-hmm. The chieftain looked just like Bryan Cranston, so that sort of threw me off. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. We need to make this the society or this native the natives of this planet look like natives. So let's dress them up as Sherpas from Nepal.
Yeah,
but it's a bunch of white people. It really stretches the believability even for Star Wars, but I understand they needed some natives for this planet. So,
and what I really love about it too is how they really show you the arrogance of the Empire, mm-hmm. and how really they are just a paper tiger. They think they can destroy this whole culture, and the act of destroying this culture is when they have such a big hit against them. So I'm really interested to see how they respond in the next episode when it comes to the indigenous people of Aldani. Mm-hmm. Are they gonna reprise against them? Are they just gonna be whatever, it was only 80 million credits, so I'm really curious how it's gonna work out. But that's the thing, who cares about the indigenous people of Aldani in reality? But the show has made me care about the indigenous people of Aldani.
Who else will be able to escort people up to the highest mountain on the planet but the Aldani? They're all dressed like Sherpas. So yeah. It just made me think of the Mount Everest Sherpas. So, but I thought it was a very well executed episode from what I saw.
And people keep telling me it was not CGI, so I don't know what practical effects they used. But when they're in when the eye finally opens up, the colors they use and the animation that they use and the practical effects that they use it's amazing. It's movie quality that we're seeing in a show like this, and I'm just really impressed with the effects that they've been using for this show. So,
and the eye is when the meteor shower happens, or is that afterwards?
No, the eye is the actual meteor shower.
Okay, yes, I saw that part. That was actually impressive.
The colors and how they're traveling through it, and how like some of the meteors take out some TIE fighters, and it's just really great quality. And for I think this is gonna be like 20 episodes.
I think 12.
And, you know, but still, like to like have that quality on a show like this is phenomenal. And it's not what we got with Kenobi. It's not what we got with Mandalorian. You know, they're really, you know, it's really impressive.
Yeah, so much better writing, at least in regards to Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, the Mandalorian's definitely like one of those, what would you call them, serials from like the 30s and 40s.
Yeah,
where it's like it's a very short episode of like part of a longer saga. You know, but it's definitely you know, those are quality serials. But this is definitely way better than Kenobi. But yeah, as you were saying,
what I love about this show is that I said it earlier, the world building. Mm-hmm. This show has done more to show you how expansive this world is, how Star Wars is. They've done more to show you the Empire and the Rebellion and the people who are caught in between. In just a few episodes, we're on episode 5 now, and we can see how big of a universe this is.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show you how great the writing is. And this goes back to, I think I was saying a few episodes ago about how when we get away from main characters in the Star Wars universe, how much more we can do with the Star Wars universe. So Kenobi was great, but because we already know what his fate is, and to a lesser extent, we know what Cassian, you know, what his fate is. But like, we can do so much more into his buildup because he's not like a main character. You know, he's not part of the rebellion, you know, who sets Luke on his like way. He is kind of this throwaway character in one of the movies that most people hate, but I love.
Well, I would say Rogue One is the best of the Disney era Star Wars movies.
Oh, definitely.
And I think everyone agrees that, but the bar is so low because the sequel trilogy and Solo that, you know, saying Rogue One is the best is not really much of a compliment. Although I was like, I remember like parts while I was watching Rogue One, I was like extremely bored. Like I just did not care. Like you know, just get to like Darth Vader, you know. But you know, even I'll agree. Like, you know, Cassian, like in the movie Rogue One, when Cassian kills his friend because he's like injured and he's gonna slow them down. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, interesting, Star Wars. That's an interesting approach to take. You know, that's
well, this harkens back to the whole Han shot first. How we're trying to make these, you know, guys show you it's not black and white.
Yeah.
And the fact that every single time that Cassian has killed somebody, he shot first. He literally just shoots them. And it harkens back to how George Lucas has modified A New Hope so many times, where it's like Han shoots at the same time. No, Han shoots first, you know, and like he moves his head. Like, I think it's a really great nod to that, and I love it.
Well, it's like, you know, Han shooting first, Han shooting at the same time, and Han shooting afterward. It's still all self-defense, right? Because you know Greedo's going to try to kill him. You know, and you know, I think like him shooting first really just shows like this guy's going to try to take me out, so I need to, you know, take him out first. But I really like that, like Andor. There's no like delusions that you know he's the one who he has to kill when he has to. Otherwise, it's either him or the other guy. So you know, but
and this episode where he kills a guy, you know, there's this vague ambiguity as to whether or not what's his name actually had a brother, or that he's saying he doesn't have a brother anymore. And that's what great writing does. Like, you know, you're questioning these people's motives. So
it's very much like, you become what you're fighting against in order to fight, what you're fighting against. It seems like, to fight a monster, you have to become a monster. It seems, and that seems to be what Andor's, I guess, message is. Like, do the ends justify the means, sort of thing.
Yep. And it's great because I feel like this episode really humanizes a lot of characters instead of makes them out to be these like super cool, badass main characters. Because several times throughout the episode, people are worried, they're afraid. What's her name doesn't want to start the assault because she's worried that it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And it does a really great job humanizing a lot of the characters, which is what we really haven't had in the Star Wars universe here lately.
Yeah,
so,
remember the one, the black dude with the mustache. He was a former stormtrooper.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like this is what Finn's story should have been. Just have have him have done horrible things, but have him try to make up for it. Whereas like Finn was just like, he didn't kill anybody. He was like an innocent, to begin with, and he didn't kill anyone who was innocent. And he just happened to like, decided to join the Resistance, whatever it's called in the sequel trilogy. Although he's perfectly fine with killing his fellow stormtrooper. Anyway, as I was saying, like, so Andor was becoming, or like the idea that like the rebellion sort of become what they're fighting against, in this show. But I really liked that the Imperial officer just like wanted them to let the boy go. That was interesting.
It's shown that even in a situation like this, we are still human. And what I've hated about kind of Star Wars is just like you have this very black and white, evil, good, and showing that there's a lot of gray area. And that's what I love about the show is it has done a great job showing the kind of like ambiguity, like how being caught in the corporate lifestyle with the guard, how being caught in just being an Imperial, how being caught, in the rebellion kind of, you get caught.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, I think Mon Mothma makes an appearance later on, right? And we sort of see that, not so much that her husband's a jerk, but that maybe I think her husband doesn't.
Well, what I love about the Mon Mothma appearance is that it goes to show you at this point in time how ineffective the Senate is and how in control the Emperor has, because the Senate is supposed to be the check on the Emperor, but we literally see that like 2/3 of the senators aren't even present. Yeah. And when news comes up of something happening, they all leave, and it's once again great world building.
Yeah.
So,
well, we know in like A New Hope that like Leia mentions the Imperial Senate, so we know there's like some sort of governing body of representatives for the Empire, for each planet in the Empire. We're not really like told how that sort of works in the original trilogy. So it's nice that they're sort of like giving some more detail on that. So Robbie just joined us. What did you think of Andor?
It was all right.
Oh no, you can't say it was all right.
I like the different take on it.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they only wrote 4 really good episodes, but I think Disney mandated that they had to have 12 episodes. And so they had to like expand their 4 good episodes into 12 good episodes. So we have like 2 episodes of filler, and then a third episode. Every third episode, it's like something interesting and.
But no. Those 2 episodes of filler have done more world building than, once again, what the movies have done, what Kenobi did. You know more about the Star Wars universe in those 2 episodes than what Kenobi did for its whole. We're back on Tatooine. Let's talk about Tatooine and the Syndicate on Tatooine. So,
yeah,
they're not really throwaway episodes.
Yeah, but I feel they could have combined the world building with the actual, forward-moving plot elements. I feel like they could have incorporated the world building in the first 2 episodes where nothing happens into the episode where something happens. So,
Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah. So, Robbie, what do you think of the whole heist sequence? Robbie, did we lose him?
Yeah, we probably lost Robbie.
Okay.
I talked over him once. Yeah, there we go.
So, Robbie, what was your favorite aspect of Andor this past week with the, the heist and stuff?
Well, I'll be honest, I missed the last episode.
Oh, okay. It seemed that way.
That's why I was a little lost in which thing you're talking about.
So, Matt, where do you think the season's going to go from here?
I'm not going to lie, because they handed the manifesto over to Cassian, and I'm worried, is what I'll say. That'll turn into Bad Batch, and it'll be the kind of mission of the week type deal. That turned me off of Bad Batch, so I'm really hoping that doesn't happen. But I really don't know, because this is a very definite end mid-season episode.
Yeah.
So, I really don't know.
Do you think that Cassian's going to meet Mon Mothma at any point this season? Or do you think that's going to be a separate storyline?
No, maybe at the very last episode, he might, but I do not see him meeting the upper echelon of the rebellion until he's proven himself a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. Mon Mothma is this character from the original trilogy that we only knew by name, and we knew nothing about her. She was in Revenge of the Sith for a second, and she was in Rogue One for a little bit, but we really know nothing about this character. And the fact that they're expanding on her, I think that's an interesting aspect. And to really pull in the old school fans of Star Wars, remember this chick in the robe and the white. Do you want to know what she was doing to help the rebellion? Well, now you know. So I think that's an interesting aspect. I think it was very smart of the showrunners to capitalize on that unknown knowledge of this character. So, where do you think Mon Mothma's story is going to go from here, Matt?
Basically, I hope it ties into Rebels. I really do, where they have to save her. Because I do know Ezra has been cast for
Ahsoka.
For Ahsoka. So I'm really hoping that they tie in her, she gets discovered and she has to flee. But I could totally see that not happening until episode 2. Not season 2, sorry.
Well, apparently this is only going to be 2 seasons, I believe.
So I can totally see season 1 ending on oh my god, she's gonna get caught, and the first few episodes of season 2 is getting her out of there, and maybe that's when she meets Cassian as well.
I'm wondering. I guess she by the time the original trilogy happened, she's no longer undercover. She's basically a fugitive from the Empire. Is that safe to say?
Well, in Rebels, they issue I don't want to say a warrant for her arrest, but they basically say she is an agent against the Empire, destroy at all costs.
Oh, okay. So I guess her cover's going to be blown probably at the end of this season, it seems.
Oh, yeah. So, and it's Ashoka and Ezra, I think, that save her. I could be wrong, though.
Okay. It seems like the Ashoka and Andor and maybe even Mandalorian are basically just going to become live-action adaptations of Rebels.
Yep. Which Rebels is an awesome show, and I have no issues with, so...
Yeah, I haven't seen it though yet. I still need to. I mean, I finally finished the first season of Bad Batch. I enjoyed. Although I feel they probably should have ended the season on episode 11 or the penultimate episode, rather than the last episode of the first season of Bad Batch seemed a bit underwhelming, and it seemed would have been more appropriate for a season 2 opener. But that's just me. So so any final thoughts on Andor?
So basically, I think kind of what I was just saying, I'm really intrigued because I really do not know where they're going to go with this next. So I'm happy a lot more than with Kenobi. I feel like it's tracking along with Mandalorian, so I think they've really hit it out of the park with this series. which is better to say than She-Hulk, because I still have no desire to watch She-Hulk, which I hear had its season finale.
Yeah, mixed feelings on the.
Yeah,
So
Rob, well, maybe we can, since we watched She-Hulk, maybe you can like give us your thoughts on the finale, since you watched that, right?
It felt a little lazy how they ended it.
Well, the thing is, like,
it was kind of cool how they did the whole fourth wall thing, and her talking to like Kevin and the other writers and stuff.
She-Hulk is like known for breaking the fourth wall. I think even before Deadpool.
Yeah, in the
Deadpool,
comics too.
In the comics, but however, like in the way that was utilized in this episode, it seemed like just a way to like tie it up in a bow, because like the whole point of her break.
They just cut to him being arrested. They just cut off everything about the final.
So I'll break it down for Matt real quick. So basically, like the entire season of She-Hulk, there's this online group, like so this subreddit called Intelligentsia, who's like very anti-She-Hulk, basically like a allegory for all the incels online and stuff. And Intelligentsia does not like She-Hulk, and apparently they get one of the Intelligentsia's members to sleep with She-Hulk and steal her blood while she's Jen. And then they post revenge porn of her having sex with this dude online. And so basically she goes on a rampage because she's angry, justifiably, and she gets thrown into prison, and she finds Intelligentsia at this retreat that Abomination owns. And right when Abomination comes out, Titania shows up out of nowhere. Hulk shows up out of nowhere. And there's supposed to be like this big fight. And she's like,
through the ceiling.
And then she's like, stop everything. And then she goes on the Disney Plus screen, pops out of the She-Hulk window and goes for like a MCU window and talks with the writer's room of She-Hulk and complains that she doesn't like the ending. And then she goes to Kevin Feige, who in this show, Kevin Feige is a robot called IN. And she tells him what she wants to happen in the finale. It ends with the Intelligentsia main dude getting arrested, Abomination going back to prison, Titania just filming it, and Daredevil showing up out of the blue. So it's very...
It sounds like they were trying to make it more intelligent
true.
than they could.
It's
like
very
they're trying to be...
Then it ended up with a very lazy feeling ending.
Because I think like the whole point of her breaking the fourth episode was they're like, we don't need to have a regular MCU ending. We don't need to have a cliche ending, but it's just like what they decided to choose for their ending was like so much worse than what would have been acceptable. So it's like basically like the main dude gets arrested.
All right, everybody's happy. The end.
Yeah, basically, and it's like doesn't even show her like litigating against the dude in court. It just shows her on the steps of the courthouse saying, like, "I'm going to take this guy down." Yeah, I'm She-Hulk, and then episode ends. And then the ending, the after credits.
No, she had like two questions. What would you? What did that reporter ask her?
I don't remember. This was like.
Do it as She-Hulk, or.
But hey, she mentioned X-Men
or something.
She mentioned X-Men, then winked at the
camera.
camera.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like, where are the X-Men?
Where are the X-Men? I'm just like,
at the camera.
Considering what you did to She-Hulk, I'm not really interested to see what you do to the X-Men, Feige, to be honest. I'm
really worried. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really worried because the X-Men have been destroyed for so long, and as a kid growing up in the 80s and 90s, like the X-Men, were like my thing. And in 91, when they broke them up into like yellow and blue, uncanny versus regular, like that was a big deal because they had so much they just were the MCU back in the early 90s. And then here lately, since like 2000 late aughts, you have Inhumans coming in and House of M, where they've kind of been like sidelined even in the comics for over a decade. It's frustrating.
Well, yeah, you gotta remember because like Fox owned the movie rights and Marvel Studios did not. So they definitely, the Marvel comics, probably by mandate by Disney, they were just like, all right, let's make the Inhumans a bigger deal because we don't want to like make X-Men comics good because we don't own the movie rights. You know, so they sort of like put
Exactly.
the X-Men on the back burner and tried to raise the Inhumans, but then they got the rights back to X-Men. Now the Inhumans are back on the back burner. And X-Men are definitely now like the number one franchise again. So
even in the comics, which I only vaguely like, I don't actively go out and buy right now, but I've been following the storylines, how they've set up this, you know, Krakoa, where all the mutants are on this, like, I don't know if it's like another moon or where it is, where
it's like,
they have
it's
a mutant society.
Yeah. Well, they've already done that. They had Genosha back in the 90s, and they had like another sanctuary. So it's nothing new. It's just like Jonathan Hickman's writing it.
Yeah, exactly. But Krakoa is this whole like, how can we sideline the mutants without like ruining the MCU? And they're literally being sidelined.
Yeah.
And it's just maddening because I love X-Men.
Yeah, it's true. So, I mean, it's true that they definitely tried to make them less of a big deal so they could raise the Inhumans up, because the MCU fervor at the time was just huge, and like the MCU was just like whatever happened and that Feige was in charge of, that they were trying to promote.
And the issue too, you know, we've acknowledged that the reason why Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, who were very minor, very like poor in sales of the actual comics, were the first ones to make the movies, were because they had the rights, and if they swung and missed, if they swung and missed, whatever, they're minor characters, and the MCU, you know, hit it out of the park. With those three characters. Now those are the major characters, so you have to like hide
Guardians of the Galaxy too. Don't forget that. Guardians of the Galaxy was like pretty much like the team that we know in the movies was only around since 2008. There was an earlier team like in the 60s, but I think the team that we're all familiar with had only formed in 2008.
Were they still Guardians of the Galaxy or someone similar?
It was just basically like all these ancillary like cosmic characters that they made into a team back in 2008. You know, right when the MCU started with Iron Man, and then like, you know, Feige and MCU, they didn't have X-Men, they didn't have Fantastic Four. They're like, well, we want like a cosmic team or a cosmic presence. So let's just use this comic book. And
what kills me is, if it's not for one of my favorite Marvel characters, Blade in the late 90s, the Marvel MCU does not exist.
Yeah.
And I do know that they tried to release the new Werewolf show the same week that Blade gets pushed back in the distribution. So it's very interesting to see where we're going with everything with Disney right now, and the Marvel right now in the MCU.
And I want to point out that like Mahershala Ali, who they've cast as Blade, as the new Blade, he's like
such a perfect choice.
Well, true, but he's like 10 years older than Wesley Snipes was when he first started playing Blade, though. So it seems like he's already aged out of the role before he's even had a chance to play it. And I think what they're going to do is like have his daughter be a big presence in the movie or whatever, and have him already be replaced when has his debut, it seems. But yeah, I mean, I think he's a good choice for Blade. He's just, you know, I won't say too old, you know, but I just hope they don't like get rid of him right when they first have him in his first movie.
Yep.
You know, I kind of want him to like at least play the character for 10 years, you know.
So I guess the question, Robbie, is this was a season finale. It's a two-part question. One, A, do you feel it was worth it? And B, did they really properly introduce Daredevil and Matthew Murdock? Because I know that was the big thing for a lot of people, keeping them to watch She-Hulk, was they kept teasing Daredevil. Do you feel they properly introduced them?
He was definitely a blackmail to get people to watch the show. Absolutely, 100%. It was Daredevil blackmail.
Yeah, his character did feel different in the show because it's got, the whole show has a more comedic feel to it. And,
well, you know, because I only ask because I really liked Hawkeye, even though I thought I would hate Hawkeye, and I really loved how they introduced Kingpin and Vincent D'Onofrio, bringing him back as well. So I'm really curious how they brought back Matthew Murdock and Daredevil, considering how well Hawkeye reintroduced, you know, a main villain. And from what I'm hearing online is, no, it was not good.
Well, if you want to see Daredevil get picked up like a toddler and unmasked, then yeah, maybe it's not for you. But and have him do the walk of shame, after sleeping with She-Hulk. But if you like,
Wait, what?
Cox,
Wait, whoa!
He
How many
She-Hulk.
people did she sleep with in this?
She has 3 one-night
So,
stands, I think, throughout this show.
Oh yeah.
Now I see why
one-night
Major told me not to show it to my
take
daughter.
It back. She had sex with a second dude after 3 dates. Who was the first guy she had a one-night stand? It was the buff dude with the buff like Puerto Rican dude, I think. She had a one-night stand with.
And nothing's wrong with that, but it just seems like the writing is lazy if in one season.
Not really a great role model for young women. More of a role model for women in their late 30s who are still single, I think. But as you said, Matt, you're worried about what they're going to do to X-Men. I think at the very least, they're going to have comic accurate costumes because we had Daredevil in his yellow costume in this series. So I think we'll at least see Wolverine in his yellow costume come the X-Men debut. Although I'd rather see the brown and orange costume from the John Byrne, Chris Claremont run. I think that's a bit more badass looking than the yellow and black one and blue one. But
so overall, She-Hulk, yay or nay to everybody?
Going with really low expectations.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's worth a watch, but don't go in expecting.
If you're a fan of the Wrecking Crew, you're not going to be very, very upset. They absolutely destroyed the Wrecking Crew in this show. They're basically complete jokes. And the comics are like literally like one of the most dangerous teams in the Marvel universe.
Well, it's just like with the Bros in Hawkeye. So.
Oh yeah, they kind of ruined them as well, and they ruined the clown Kazi, who was such a great villain in that comic series, and they just made him just like a generic goon who was like basically just like a henchman. And he was, and they even have like Hawkeye's brother in that show, who was like, that was such an interesting like dynamic, like him and his brother. I would have loved to see that in the show, but they were just more focused on like, we got to introduce Echo, we got to like have more Yelena, we got to have Kate Bishop be the star of the show. It's like, we don't even like their main character, so. But we've discussed Hawkeye, my overall displeasure with it, or how I think what lost opportunity it was. But She-Hulk, keep your expectations low. You might chuckle a few times, but just know it's not going to be amazing. It's very low tier Marvel fanfare. So, but Rob, did you watch Werewolf by Night? Matt, did you watch Werewolf by Night?
No, unfortunately.
You might actually enjoy Werewolf by Night. It's like one of those things where it's like it's just a short 15-minute sort of presentation, but it's like a fun little Halloween special. So maybe like on Halloween night, you can just like get the family well, maybe not. It's not really a family friendly. There's no like sex or anything. It's just like a little violent, but it's like in black and white. It's like
next podcast.
Yeah, it's just like if you like the Universal Monsters movies, I think you'll get a kick out of it. Like I was a big fan of those when I was a kid, like the Wolfman, Frankenstein, Dracula, Creatures of the Black Lagoon. There's definitely some of that flair in this.
My dad was saying he really liked it too.
Yeah,
he read the comics when he was a kid. He said
Monster Squad, which is available on Netflix finally.
Is that with Fred Savage? Or is that
it's not Fred Savage. I forget who it is, but it was one of the shows I remember. One of the movies I remember watching, as a teenager that I really loved. So
I remember seeing, because it was like Dracula, the Mummy, the Wolfman, and all those Universal monsters in that movie. So I was sort of into it. I never saw it all the way through, but I think I remember seeing it like day camp for a little bit, and I saw like one of the kids was smoking. It's like, oh,
yeah, so, exactly. You have a bunch of 13, 14-year-olds. You're like, oh my god, they're so badass. And when you're 13 and 14, you're like, holy crap.
And like when you're in elementary school, you're told like smoking is like the worst sin ever. It's like worse than murder. And you see like teenagers.
So if you watch Disney Plus with the kids, like I do, they will actually warn you when there is smoking in a movie or show. It'll literally have a warning saying smoking in it, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah. Well, Matt, are you familiar with the Man-Thing character?
No.
He's essentially Marvel's Swamp Thing. I think there's like some weird.
I'm gonna have to look this up now.
I think Man Thing and Swamp Thing came out at the exact same time, so it's not really sure who ripped off who, or even.
Swamp Thing is definitely the original. So.
Yeah, I think like Man Thing came out the exact same month or like the exact same year, so it's like if they must have ripped them off like right away. It seems, but Man Thing is basically Marvel's Swamp Thing. He's like just a regular dude, became the swamp creature, and I think the only difference is he can make people spontaneously combust or something like that. So, but we saw a few of the horror characters in this show. We saw Man Thing, the Werewolf by Night, Jack Russell, played by another Mexican actor.
And once again, it's frustrating because this is supposed to be the lead up to Blade, but the director has walked away.
Yep.
Now we're not going to get Blade. I'm convinced we're not going to get Blade. And
it seems like the director wanted to make like an actual R-rated Blade movie, like the original trilogy. Yep. And I think Feige was like, no, like we have to have a
and this gets in the whole debate of unchecked capitalism. Like, do we make money off these movies or do we make good movies?
Yeah, so it's like the Venom movies by Sony. Like they should have been rated R, but they were like, oh no, we have to get more people in the theater, so we got to make it PG-13. Even though like the movie was, I won't say critically panned, but like not mixed reviews. I think, although it did make a lot of money because Venom is just so popular. But then Morbius came out, which also should have been rated R. And
it's Jared Leto, so come on.
That's true. But I think even like with a rated R Morbius movie would have done better than the PG-13 one. I think we can all agree on that. At least we would have seen ripping people's throats out.
And I think that's the frustrating part when you're. I can see as a studio how you're like, how do we get the kids involved for the next 10 years? And that's what we're seeing with who they're choosing to do right now. But at the same time, too, as an adult, you're like, I want the rated R version.
Well, look at Joker with not Jared Leto, but Joaquin Phoenix made over $1 billion. Yep. Probably cost less than Morbius.
Yep.
And,
but as a studio, you're like, do I make a good film in which, the adults are going to love, or do I try to hook the kids so that way they watch it for the next 10 years and I make the money off of them over the next 10 years and just do medium quality? And I feel that's where we're at with the MCU, at least, is Disney is saying, let's make medium quality movies and shows, but let's get them hooked. Who cares about the adults? They're going to go away anyways. And
they're going to die one day.
Exactly. Why else make She-Hulk? Come on.
Well, let's remember that we all, at least people my age, snuck into 300 because it was R-rated before we were 17. So, like, you want to make good R-rated movies, the kids will sneak into them. You won't get those box office numbers because they're buying tickets for their movies and then sneaking into that show. But, they're going to want to watch it, like, when they're, in their 30s, though.
Because at the end of the day, when I was 13, 14, like, when I was 13, like, Terminator 2, like, of course I'm watching that. And I shouldn't be. But, like, the parents would be like, hey, HBO is on. Just make sure you go to bed on time. So at the end of the day, the kids are still watching the rated R stuff, and that's why I feel I'm frustrated, because rated R serves a lot of these comics a lot better than making it PG-13.
Absolutely. Yeah, so...
just look at the X-Men.
Well, I don't even know if Deadpool 3 is going to be rated R. I mean, we all know that Ryan Reynolds is coming back for that, and Hugh Jackman is coming back as Wolverine, which sort of kills the impact that Logan had. As a swan song.
So here's the thing, though. I am willing to bet with Deadpool, he's either going to be in for like 2 minutes at the beginning or 2 minutes at the end, or like just like kind of walks on screen and says hi, and then that's it. He will not be a major part of that film.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it seems like Ryan Reynolds is making it out to be that he's going to be a major part of the film.
Exactly, and that's the joke.
Yeah. But
he's getting them on.
Yeah, so it's like, so wait, who's gonna play Wolverine for the actual X-Men movie? It seems it's like, what's the point? But they already killed Logan's impact by having Patrick Stewart come back. They bribed him. They had enough money to where they could get him to come back, and it's already killed the impact for that movie by having him come back. So
we'll just make him old and dying in the show too.
They killed him in the movie too. So they snapped his neck. So you would have thought that Charles Xavier could beat a mentally unstable Scarlet Witch, but apparently not. So, but yeah, so we got one more Marvel movie. I think one more. No more Marvel shows this year, but I think one more Marvel movie, Wakanda Forever. So has everyone seen the trailers for that? Is anyone looking forward to it?
No.
No, there's no T'Challa. It's just like, but they were sort of had their hands tied. It was like, what would be the less offensive thing to do, or the less controversial thing to do? Just have someone take on the Black Panther mantle who's already established, or recast T'Challa. I think the path of least resistance was to have someone take over the mantle from T'Challa, because in the comics, in the comic Shuri, I think, took over the mantle. Although her comic series got canceled in like 12 issues anyway, but doesn't matter. It's like they're just like, well, it happened in the comics, so it's fair game.
I'm sure I'll go see it.
What do you? Matt, yeah, go ahead.
So I love Shuri, and I think she should totally take over. Unless I'm watching it wrong, it's introducing Namor.
Yep.
And the whole Atlanteans.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kills it for me, is I just cannot buy them as a force to like threaten Wakanda.
I thought they were a landlocked country. So
yeah, exactly. Like, I think that's the issue. Like, we decided to have a fight with. It's like watching that Rick and Morty episode where they land in the ocean, and all of a sudden they have like this big thing, and it's like a joke about how much power he really has. That's how I feel about watching this trailer. It's like Wakanda is not going to be challenged by. I don't know.
It's really playing into Americans' ignorance of the African continent. Because you would think, like the world knows what all the countries on the African coast are, but they're just like, well, we don't know where Wakanda is. We just know it's like somewhere in Central Africa.
But that's the other thing too. It's like it's protected, it's hidden. Like you have to know how to fly into it, because they project the image of it of being just mountains, and they think you get to fly into mountains. Yeah. And like this is how we're going to introduce Namor and the Atlanteans, and I just don't buy it.
It's just like you would think that it's like Wakanda is suddenly on the coast now. Like the only way Atlantis could threaten Wakanda is if it was on the coast, and it's just like Americans don't know where the African countries are. They only know where Egypt is. So it's like we just have Wakanda on the coast, and they won't know the difference. But it's like for people who are actually like work in trade or in imports and exports, like those countries on the African coast are pretty important to like their the economy, and like those countries' economies, and like economy of other countries. So like you really need to know like what the countries on the African coast are. But they're just like, well, Wakanda is suddenly on the coast now. Even in the first movie, it seemed pretty apparent that it was like a landlocked country that was sort of like smaller,
in the middle of nowhere and hidden.
Yeah. So, but now it's suddenly on the coast, and just like just Americans will buy it because they're stupid. They don't know anything about Africa. So, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like it seems like a lot was like I will say like with Moon Knight, they were so afraid of making Moon Knight just Marvel's Batman. They had to drastically alter his origin, his powers and whatever. It seems like for like Namor, they're drastically altering him so he's not confused with Aquaman. From the DC movies. Like,
I definitely buy that.
Like, there's no Atlantis in this movie. There's like it's like a country called Tenochtitlan or Talakan. It's like some Aztec sort of underwater kingdom. But I don't know. I mean, at least he has the wings on his ankles. But I would have much preferred Namor being introduced in the Fantastic Four sequel. But it's like, the thing was like they used up all three of Black Panther's arch enemies in the first movie. They used Claw, they killed him off, they killed Killmonger off, and they made Man-Ape or M'Baku into like an ally or whatever. So it's like he had no villains left anyway, so they had to use Namor. It seems. So unless they want to use like, it's funny because I looked up like the old Black Panther villains. There's one called Venom with 2 M's, and he controls snakes. And there's one called Carnage, spelled Karnaj. So there's a Venom and Carnage for Black Panther, but he's not. They're not. They have nothing to do with Spider-Man. So they should have had them be the villains. Just like as an FU to Sony, like you won't let us use Venom or Carnage. We'll use our own Venom and Carnage. So, but yeah, I don't know. I'll check it out. You know, I think it seems they're really leaning into the fact that T'Challa is dead, obviously, because like they're having a funeral for him in the trailers and stuff. So, you know. So we will see. Like it could be good, it could be bad. We just know that like there will be no T'Challa, and Shuri is most likely going to be Black Panther in this.
Yep. Which I have no issues with, but like, just make Shuri Black Panther.
Well, the I think is that like the actress who plays Shuri is very, very anti-vaccination in real life, so she really hasn't done herself any favors, with. People, and I think like there was an issue like she couldn't even go to the U.S. to film in Atlanta because she refused to get vaccinated. So like production was halted on the show because of this actress. And so, like I said, we'll see. From what I saw in the trailer, it looks like it'll be very emotional and impactful, and at least we'll see like a Namor flying with his ankle feet, his ankle wings. So I don't know, but I think that's it. That's it for all the Marvel stuff this year, right? Unless I'm mistaken. That Wakanda Forever will be the last Marvel property, so. MCU related things. So,
hey, with DC, they got a Black Adam coming up.
That's true, yeah, and
that'd be cool.
I think that's gonna be like another Hobbs and Shaw. You remember that movie? It was like the Fast and Furious spinoff. It's gonna be a very, very CGI laden, over the top action movie that's just mediocre, but it'll make a shit ton of money.
Well, if you're watching football today, they released an extended trailer, and it looked very CGI heavy.
Well, I think the only reason I really want this movie to succeed is because I want a spin-off movie with Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate.
I can see that.
Well, I have a strong feeling that he's going to die in this movie, though. Because there's like
Black
another
Adam?
Doctor. There's another Dr. Fate.
Oh.
The guy with the gold helmet.
Oh, okay.
He's basically DC's Doctor Strange, although he was created like 20 years before Doctor Strange was. But it seems like he can like make copies of himself. He can create a mirror dimension in the trailers I've seen. So they're very much like making him Doctor Strange in this movie, Dr. Fate. But I think there's like a younger Egyptian version of Dr. Fate. I have a strong feeling they're going to reference him and have him be Dr. Fate. They're going to kill off Pierce Brosnan and Kent Nelson. And, that's my feeling. So the reason I want this movie to succeed seems to be self-sacrificing, because they're going to kill off Kent Nelson anyway. So I don't want this movie to succeed anymore. But maybe Hawkman will be cool. And, as we know, Hawkman is usually white. It is white in the comics, but I think in this case, Hawkman being black doesn't bother me because Hawkman reincarnates across time and space. And I think in like Jeff Johns' Hawkman run, he was like a slave, like a black slave in a former life. So I think him like Hawkman being a different race isn't as controversial as some people would have you believe. So. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how Black Adam turns out. I think the rumor has it that Henry Cavill's going to come back as Superman in a post-credit scene. Are you all excited for that, or are you all just like, let it go?
Oh, I missed that though.
Yeah, it just seems like Damage is done. Like he's so tethered to the Zack Snyder DC universe that like having him come back is just going to be like, they really should just like reboot the whole Superman franchise. But it really just shows you just how inadequate WB executives are with handling this franchise, the franchise being the whole DC universe. Like we're making a Black Adam movie, we're making a Birds of Prey movie with Harley Quinn, we're making a Joker standalone movie, rather than like, focusing on like, the main DC heroes. So I don't know. We'll just see how Black Adam turns out. It comes out next week, right?
The 22nd.
Yep. So we shall see. I think it's gonna make a lot of money. It's PG-13. It has The Rock. He's a strong fan base, So I think it's gonna make a lot of money. I don't expect it to be amazing though.
And The Rock was on Fox NFL Sunday Countdown today. Totally not promoting it to adults. So,
I mean, I think it's gonna be like a by the numbers sort of comic book movie. But Hobbs and Shaw made a lot of money, and that looked pretty terrible.
See what kind of action scenes they come up with.
Yep, we shall see. So,
I will only watch it for the podcast, which is saying a lot because I refuse to watch She-Hulk.
Matt, I gotta warn you. It's probably not gonna be on HBO Max the same day like Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
So you're probably gonna have to actually make an actual trek to the movie theater to watch it. Although I think it's PG-13, you could probably take your kids. I don't think there's gonna be too much violence. Although I remember when my dad
disintegrations. But...
I remember my dad took me to see X-Men, and I hid under the seats when Senator Kelly became a blob. That freaked me out. I was too young to watch that. So, the first X-Men scared the shit out of me. So the first Black Adam might scare the shit out of your kids. Just forewarning you.
Well, that's you know what? You remember that, don't you? And that's a life experience that you have with your dad. And you'll remember that. So that's an experience I want with my kids as well.
Well, I remember my mom had to take my brother to see the new Pokemon movie. And my dad took me to see X-Men. And my mom was just like, I would have much rather have seen X-Men than watch that Pokemon movie. So, But now looking back, I was like, why was I scared of this? The CGI is terrible. It's like
it really is bad.
It's like 2000 CGI, but it's still a way better movie than X-Men: The Last Stand and X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I constantly rewatch movies, and it's really hate to use the phrase, it's the zeitgeist. When you are first seeing this type of animation, and it is at the time some of the best animation you can get, it is kind of scary or freaky.
Yeah.
But nowadays, like if you watch 80s horror films, it's a joke. You laugh at it. But in the 80s, when you're a kid, you watch it, you're like, oh my God.
Whoa,
he's really getting stabbed. Yeah. No, so like I was rewatching the Friday the 13th recently.
Yeah.
And like he's in a porta-john and he gets like stabbed through the porta-john. And it is like comically bad, the whole scene. But when I was 10, when I was like 12, 13, when I was watching this for the first time, it's like, oh my God, it looks so real. So I can see how you would be traumatized by Blob Senator. Because it looked so real back in the day. Like, you never saw that on film.
Well, I will say that the CGI in X-Men is way better than CGI in Mortal Kombat 1996. Oh, yeah. Like, that CGI is atrocious. And it was like one of the first movies to utilize, those effects. So,
or even one of my favorite films, Event Horizon. Love that film. I remember being scared to death when it got released.
Same director.
Yep. And
for me, it was Alien.
I was watching Event Horizon the other night on Pluto TV, and it's like comically bad. Like
really,
it like you just look at it, you're like, it's still a great movie with the storytelling and everything, but the effects at times are just like really, because you have an HD screen now and you can see like all the like minor things, and you're like, wow, this is like kind of cheesy. But in the late 90s, early aughts, this was like, breaking technology, and you had those big TVs that weren't HD and you couldn't see everything. So like it looked a lot more real than it does now.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I remember when Toy Story came out, like probably like the first all CGI movie. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, this was like groundbreaking at the time, and it was a great movie to boot beyond that. But like you look at it now, it's like it looks like so bad.
Yeah,
you can
like,
see
wow.
the differences after being.
But like at the time, you're just like, this is amazing, And then
remember that shark that comes at you in Back to the Future when he goes to the future?
Oh yeah.
I remember that scene more real as a kid than what it looks like now.
All right.
It looks so bad.
Watch, I think the movie's Deep Impact, when Samuel L. Jackson's given his soliloquy and the shark eats him. Like, back in the day, you're like, oh, shit.
Deep Blue Sea.
That was Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, shit. Like, oh, my God. But, like, watching it now, it is so hilarious because it's, like, the CGI is so bad. You're like, ha, 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 ha. It's not scary anymore. But back in the day, it was, so...
Well, let's talk about good CGI. How CGI is so good that even on TV it looks better, like House of the Dragon. So, do you want to talk about that? Matt's favorite show ever. So,
I'm going to give you my Tina Belcher from Bob's Burgers about House of Dragons.
Well, Rob, you saw the last episode, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna let y'all talk about it while I go to the bathroom real quick. But I'm sure.
Did you watch it?
I haven't seen it yet. I'm still on I think I'm on the episode before that, like where I think Rhaenyra and Daemon hook up. They're like on the beach, right? Yeah. I think it's about as far as I got, but yeah, I was not really too enthralled.
Who's Sauron?
Well, we can't get Rings of Power yet, but yeah, I'll talk about House of the Dragon for like.
So, Robbie, what do you think? Because it was very intriguing, but once again, it's a soap opera.
I mean, yeah, they did have. It does look pretty nice. You can definitely tell they put a lot of money into it, but overall, I did like it. What were your thoughts on it? Or they actually? Well, I guess they finally did get into a little bit more into the stranger. But one thing that did bug me was. It was like he only knew like a few words for a while, and then suddenly he's speaking perfect English.
Yeah.
Unless there was a little time jump that they don't really tell you.
So yeah, once again, they do a time jump, which is frustrating, and they're basically Corlys is dying, and they want Rhaenyra's son to take over, and they're basically, the whole point of this episode is to show whether or not their lineage is proper, and everybody knows it's not, but it is, and it's just this like drama and this like kind of like, for lack of a better phrase, soap opera telling of.
Are you really?
Yeah, like. And it's frustrating because Viserys finally shows up, and from what I've heard, when they were filming, when he stumbles and loses the crown, that wasn't scripted, and Daemon picks up the crown and puts it on his head. Like, they totally just ad-libbed that, and that's like
that's kind of cool when stuff that wasn't scripted gets in there.
Yeah. That wasn't. He was just supposed to help him up, and then he drops the crown and he puts a like. Apparently, that was totally ad lib, which is awesome. But once again, it's just another episode of drama. Oh wait, all the adults now get along because the king's about ready to die, but now the kids who we've tainted for years hate each other. Oh, no wonder why the kids hate each other, because we've tainted them for years, and just. It's maddening, because if you want to know how this ends, I forget which episode it is, but when Joffrey in Game of Thrones is trying to marry what's-her-name, he brings her down into the catacombs, and he shows you Vaegon's skull, and he tells you the whole fate of what happens to everybody. It is that easily ruined. But like, we already know what's going to happen. So let's just get to the action at this point. Like, usually I hate a ton of action in the series, but I feel like this has gone the opposite spectrum, where it's too much drama. Nothing ever happens in an episode. It's just like, where do we stand in court? So here's where we stand in court. Yeah.
Well, I think like one of the things, probably one of the few things I like about this show. I mean, it's definitely way better than Rings of Power, She-Hulk. And
yes, I'll give you that.
But I think like what sort of like struck me with this show was like, it shows you how dragons are trained. Like you have those dragon trainers, and they speak this other language. It seems like they're almost like they were like born to raise and train dragons. So at least we see that aspect of it. You know, this is stuff we didn't really see in Game of Thrones, at least the earlier seasons. You know, how dragons are trained. You know, how they're sort of like, you know, imprinted on their rider or whatever. So
and how they get to choose.
Yeah. So, you know, I enjoy that aspect of the show, but it definitely seems like, I think I've probably said this before in a previous episode, that they did not have as much material as the actual Song and Fire books. And
I don't know if you, George R. R. Martin basically came out this week saying that this needs to be 4 seasons and 4 seasons only.
Yeah, too many.
And at the same time too, I'm like, how do you make this into 4 seasons, dude?
Yeah.
Like, I think you're stretching.
It should be like
2 seasons.
Yeah, it should be like a mini series, like over 1 season, which is what American Gods should have been too. It's something like, let me answer that in as well. You know, it's like you don't your books only have so much material you can adapt, and usually when showrunners try to add in their own sort of ideas, that's usually when the show falls apart. And that's basically what happened with the Game of Thrones in the later seasons. Anyway, is I'm sure like a million people have said already, but you know, I struggled getting through the last episode. I still haven't finished it yet, but you know, hopefully.
It's such a frustrating show because I want to love it. And, you know, the very first episode, I really hated how much gratuitous violence that it had that was unnecessary. But now, are we on 8 or 9? I'm just like, I would go back to the gratuitous, unnecessary violence because literally every episode is like the political intrigue. And it's just like, no, we've gone way to the opposite direction.
Yeah, HBO just seems to like buy the rights of Wheel of Time from Amazon and just adapt that because it's a completed series, and have George R. R. Martin be executive produce it. You know, if he wants to do his own show, just have him do someone else's, you know, books. You know, I figure if he wants to be working TV so much, then rather than write his own novels, I'm sure he could at least do a better Wheel of Time adaptation than Amazon is doing right now. You know, I'd rather see it. I would rather see a George R. R. Martin Wheel of Time, you know, than an Amazon Wheel of Time. Even if that sacrifices Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring, you know, we're probably never getting his last 2 books, are we? So
no, definitely not.
So,
but I think House of Dragon, literally 5 minutes is all it really deserves of discussion because nothing's happened. 20 years advanced, nothing's happened.
Alicent and Rhaenyra hate each other. The kids hate each other.
20 years is advanced. Oh, now we're friends, but now the kids hate each other.
But there's dragons. You know?
Yeah,
that's the only thing people watching this show. So I guess we should probably end the show on Rings of Power. So Robbie, what did you think of the Sauron reveal?
Yeah, well, finally they reveal some stuff, is what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I don't believe you.
They revealed they revealed the identity of one character, and they sort of strongly hinted at the identity of another character without outright saying it.
Yeah, what was your thoughts when they said we're here for you, Sauron? And they say the wizard is Sauron.
Yeah, well, I think I already knew ahead of time. I think someone already spoiled for me that. Spoiler, Matt. Halbrand is Sauron. You know, I was
just thinking, no way, but could it be?
It seemed very, very I mean, I really thought Halbrand was gonna be the Witch King of Angmar because he's a king. There's like some darkness to him. You know, he is like, you know, he's sort of like in the gray area. He's morally ambiguous. So I was hoping he would be Witch King. I did not want to be Sauron because we all know.
Yeah, me neither.
We don't all know, but in the legendarium that Tolkien established in the Silmarillion, Sauron shows up as Anatar, the Lord of the Gifts, to help Celebrimbor create the Rings of Power. But apparently, I didn't realize this before watching, but I learned afterwards that the showrunners or Amazon does not own the rights to Anatar for some reason. So they couldn't call him Anatar, but they have him say like, oh, you can make the rings this way, Celebrimbor. You can make the rings this way. Use this ore, and use the ore this way. Use these ores to make this ore. And he's like, why would you do this for me? Oh, it's a gift. And he looks at the camera and winks. So they can't say he's Anatar, Lord of the Gifts, but they can like strongly hint that he's Anatar. So Halbrand is Sauron. We know Galadriel finds out. And I think what really kills this show and really shows how much the writers were in over their heads or didn't know what they were doing is like this. It makes basically the whole season makes it look like Galadriel's just an idiot because she convinced Halbrand to like become king of the Southlands. She convinces him to like leave Numenor to fight in the Southlands, but it turns out he's Sauron the whole time. So it's like pretty much like all this mystery box bull crap. You know, we can't reveal who Sauron is, but you know. We'll make him Sauron in the last episode, even though it pretty much like goes against what his character did and said throughout the season. He doesn't want to leave Numenor. He wants to stay and work as a smith. But then Galadriel convinces him to go to Middle Earth. So it's just I don't know. It was bad. And then the stranger who we're initially led to believe is Sauron because like the chicks say that you are Lord Sauron. There's been a veil put over your eyes so you forget who you are. Turns out he's not Sauron, the stranger. He's one of the Istari. Basically, I think they didn't say he was Gandalf, but I think it's strongly hinted that he's Gandalf because he says to Nori at the very end of the season, like, just follow your nose. Which I think Gandalf. I think Gandalf says that in one of the movies. So. But I also think that the showrunners do not have the rights to say Gandalf in this show either, so they'll probably call him something else in season 2.
I could say wizard, I guess.
Well, I think he's called like Aloran is like another one of his names, or like Mithrandir. You know, so
or
he's
before it becomes the White Wizard or the Gray Wizard, he could be
the Beige Wizard. I don't know.
Yeah.
The off Gray Wizard, the off White Wizard. But I was really hoping he was going to be like one of the Blue Wizards because like those are like the two wizards we've never seen before. We know nothing about. Like those have been the two wizards to actually explore in this show. But like we're just going to do Gandalf again. It seems like we've had 3 live action. We've had six live action movies and 3 animated movies with Gandalf, and we're just going to do Gandalf again. It's like why could they just do like the Blue Wizards? You know, just like have him wear a blue robe at the end of the episode. So I think like Tolkien said that the Blue Wizards or Alatar Palando was in the Second Age. You know, although that sort of contradicts what he said in like a later writing, but I think they could have gotten away with
a blue outfit later.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're doing. I think you got to remember the showrunners, the 2 main writers, their only screen credit prior to the show was an uncredited rewrite on Star Trek Beyond. Check their IMDb page. So they had absolutely no experience how to run a TV series. They had never really they had never really gotten full credit on a screenplay before, and yet they're given the reins to this entire show, this huge franchise, and yet they have very little experience production wise. So it's like, what were they thinking giving them this show? So. But Matt, have you seen any of the Rings of Power episodes?
Like I said, I have tried twice now to watch the first episode and fall asleep. I'm waiting for my wife to want to watch it with me, and I've heard differing opinions as to whether or not it gets better come episode 2 or 3. So I'll eventually watch it.
I think episode 6 is the best.
I only need to wait 6 episodes. Okay,
exactly.
That's only. How many hours?
I think I enjoyed episode. Well, let me put it this way: the show looks, the production values are great, so you can definitely see more money went into the production, like the CGI and just the way the costuming and the way the Numenor and all the other locations look. Those look great. It's pretty to look at. Looks like a movie, but the writing is just generic,
atrocious. Yeah,
and it's just less than adequate. But I don't know. I won't give it a solid recommendation. I'm just if there's nothing else on, give it a shot. It's not it's funny. Another Amazon show which we all love, The Boys. I think Eric Kripke is the showrunner on that. He had 10 seasons of Supernatural to break his teeth in, and probably had some experience writing for other shows before that. So it's why did they give these two random guys the reins of this show? It's insane. So, but I don't know. Well, hopefully season 2 will be an improvement. Hopefully they'll listen to the critiques of the first season and they'll try to do some course correction. That's like my only optimistic sort of viewpoint after watching this show. So, but Robbie, what did you think? I'm sure you liked it more than I did, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Out of 10, Rob, what would you give it out of 10?
I'd give it like a 6.
Oh wow, I was gonna give it a 7, and there's like be mostly just for the production values. So,
yeah, it was really nice looking.
Tip, have you seen all of Rings of Power?
Earlier, I was mixing it up talking about Rings of Power.
How far did you get into it? I thought you were at least that was like the one show you were watching.
I've seen episode 6.
So you saw Adar and I think like Mordor being born, right?
Yep.
What did you think of that episode at least? That was the best one though, right?
That was good. That was a pretty good episode. Solid. Man, you know, the whole time watching it, I was like thinking about my dad. Like, damn, he would love this. It's awesome. Because really, I think they did a great job on the show. Altogether, they put together something that, yeah, okay, you know, seafaring guys riding around on horses, cool.
The sea is always right.
And how'd they get all the horses on the ship?
All those seamen and all those horsemen.
That meme.
There's like
Remember that
100
meme?
horses, and the ship is like 2 stories tall. So it's like they would have all had to be on the second floor, and like they would all have to sleep on the top floor. But yeah, Tip, continue.
That was so funny.
Let's not think about like the schematics. It's like Noah's Ark. Like no way they could fit that many animals on the Ark. No way they could fit horses on the ship.
No, dude, they just bought them there. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, they have a bunch of
they
money.
broke them. They
stuff.
they found them on Middle Earth and they broke them there, and they trained them there. They were all wild horses on Middle Earth. So they trained them.
However many they had.
Yeah. So were you disappointed that Adar was not Sauron, or were you happy he was not Sauron? He said he was not Sauron.
No, I mean,
right? He said he killed Sauron.
Because, so the
Well, he's like an Uruk, right? He's not like an orc, right? I think you're
he's an elf that was corrupted by, you know,
Morgoth.
dark forces.
Yeah. So, but yeah, episode 6 was definitely the best episode. And the last 2 episodes, I think, were not as good. But I won't spoil them for Tip. But Tip, you'll watch season 2 though, right? Because I think season 2 is definitely guaranteed.
I mean, if they don't make a season 2, I'm gonna.
Oh, it's coming.
I don't even.
Jeff Bezos
Wait,
invested $1 billion. It's on Amazon. Yeah, Jeff Bezos paid $1 billion for this show. It's definitely going to season 2.
Yeah.
He's not going to cut back an investment this soon. He's like, this is going to work.
Wow.
This is going to work. This is going to work.
Well, you never know, because Zaslav with
Zaslav just wants to have like documentaries or reality shows on Discovery Plus. He just
killed Cartoon Network.
He doesn't care about scripted shows. He just wants documentary. So what happened? So what was with Zaslav and Cartoon Network? He actually canceled Cartoon Network. Is that right? Or what happened?
No. So basically, the issue is that Cartoon Network Studios is going to be folded into the WB Animation Studios. They have fired 60 show writers, animators, and positions, and they had 40 open positions open, which they're not going to fill.
Are they going to keep Toonami? Which I haven't watched in 10 years. So they brought it back? Oh no, we lost Matt. Shit.
Uh-oh.
Can he get back in? I hope he can.
I've noticed they've been playing like early 2000s Cartoon Network shows.
Oh, like I Am Weasel and Ed and Eddie?
Yeah, they had like Courage the Cowardly Dog, and they even had Scooby-Doo and some other.
I used to love
Ed and
Courage the
Eddie.
Cowardly Dog because it was like
Dexter's Lab.
Yeah. Courage the Cowardly Dog was a great show when I was a kid, but looking back, it was a really weird show.
Yeah, I watched an episode earlier, and
I think I watched it and I was like, why did I like this? I think I liked it because it was basically like a different monster every episode. And I was a big fan, like I said before on this episode, like I was a big fan of like the Universal monsters. So I liked, there was like no vampires and stuff. There might be like a werewolf or show or something, but there's like always something weird going on. There's always like some sort of monster or like,
Seeing how Courage tries to communicate with him. He keeps like turning into the monster or a little version of her.
Yeah. But, those are all great shows. But that's sad that, to be fair, I haven't watched Cartoon Network in a long time, except, I think I watched like Toonami every now and then, or Adult Swim every now and then. But I never watched like actual like prime time programming for Cartoon Network. So like, it's not the end of the world for me. But it's a shame. Like a lot of kids do like that channel. Like myself growing up, I did like it a lot. So, but yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get Matt back. I think we were sort of like he talked about House of the Dragon, hour now. Plus we have like I think 10 or 20 minutes on the first recording. So Rob, you want to plug our social media?
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter at Zealot Podcast. We have a link to our Discord and such there. Come check us out.
Yeah, and I apologize that the episode we recorded previously is not up yet. I think Riverside is being weird and it won't finalize the recording for some reason. I think
I wasn't as prepared as I should have been this podcast, I feel.
Well, I think it's just like I think we've reached the maximum number of minutes to where they'll allow you to record material without having to pay premium. So they want me to pay a premium price to finish the recording or just record past 2 hours. So I'm just like, I don't make any money off this podcast. This is like a labor of love. I don't want to have to pay to do my podcast. So let's just go back to Anchor. So, yeah, we'll see. And I can probably upload it. Hopefully I get it actually uploaded today. But yeah, that's our show. I'll try to get this up on Twitter. But if not, you can like reach out to us on Twitter. And let us know what you thought of the shows. And we discussed Andor today. We discussed House of the Dragon. We discussed She-Hulk. We discussed Rings of Power. So a lot of content out there. Yeah. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. See ya. I'm Forrest.
I'm Robbie.
See ya. And Matt was here too, and so was Tip. But yeah. See ya.